41 years of showing up for people. And the one afternoon I finally showed up for myself, I got treated like a criminal. My name is Frank Delvecchio. I'm 71 years old, and I live in a brick two-story on Larkspur Court in a town called Millbrook Falls, about 20 minutes outside of Rochester, New York. I've been on this street since 1987. Same mailbox. Same maple tree I planted when my daughter was born. Same man, mostly. I spent 38 years as a union electrician, then as a foreman, then running my own small contracting outfit Delvecchio Electric before I sold the business and retired at 66. I got up at 5:15 every morning for 4 decades. I drove a Ford truck that I kept for 11 years past when I should have traded it in, because every spare dollar went somewhere else. My wife Rosalie could tell you I wore the same wool coat every winter for 15 years because I didn't want to spend the money on myself while there were braces to pay for, and college tuition, and a wedding to help fund. What my kids never understood was that every overtime check, every bonus from a big commercial job, every dollar I didn't spend on myself went straight into a retirement account and a small portfolio. I built slow and quiet, one contribution at a time. I never talked about money. I just built it. That's who Frank Delvecchio was. Is. My 71st birthday landed on a Sunday in early July. Rosalie made her pot roast, the one with the pearl onions, and a coconut cake she only bakes twice a year. My son Michael and my daughter Renee called. Nice enough calls. Short calls. The kind where you hang up and realize the whole conversation took maybe 6 minutes combined. That's fine. They've got their lives. I understand that. What neither of them knew, what nobody knew, was that 4 days before my birthday, I had walked into a marina on Lake Ontario and put a deposit on a 32-foot cabin cruiser I'd been looking at online for almost 8 years without ever once letting myself click, request, a quote, a 2024 model. White hull, navy trim, twin engines. $96,000. Paid outright, no loan. I drove out to the marina the day it arrived, climbed aboard, and sat in the captain's chair for almost 20 minutes before I even started the engine. Just sat there. Ran my hand along the wheel, listened to the water slap against the hull, felt the sun on my neck. I felt like a man again. I don't say that lightly. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I'd done something for Frank. Not for the mortgage. Not for Michael's law school loans I co-signed. Not for the down payment I helped Renee scrape together on her house 4 years ago. For me. I should have known that feeling had an expiration date on it. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from tonight. This one's going to take a minute, but stay with me, because it's worth it. Michael found out first. He drives up to Millbrook Falls most Saturdays to get his oil changed at the shop his buddy runs. And somebody at the marina mentioned it to somebody who mentioned it to him. Small town. Everybody knows everybody's business before you do. He showed up at the house that same afternoon, no call ahead, no text. I heard his car in the driveway and looked out the kitchen window, and there he was, sitting behind the wheel, just staring toward the backyard, toward the tarp I had draped over the trailer where I was keeping some of the boat gear until the slip was ready. I went out onto the porch with my coffee. Afternoon sun. He got out slow. Dad, is that a boat trailer? It is. Whose boat? Mine. He looked at me the way you'd look at a stranger who just told you something impossible. You bought a boat? I did. Last week. How much, Dad? 96. He didn't say anything for a second. Just stood there in the driveway with his jaw working. 1,000? That's right. He pulled his phone out before he'd even said goodbye. I watched him back out of the driveway, phone already up to his ear before he hit the street. I knew exactly who he was calling. Renee showed up the next evening. Michael was with her. They don't travel together unless something's been discussed beforehand. I've noticed that over the years, the same way I noticed it with my own brother and me when we were young and our father was still alive. When they call separately, it's casual. When they show up together, unannounced, there's an agenda sitting in the car with them. Rosalie was drying dishes when we heard the car doors. She looked at me. Her look said, "Be patient with them." Mine said, "I already know what this is." They came in and sat in the living room, Michael on the couch. Renee in the armchair by the bay window, the same chair she's been curling up in since she was 8 years old. I sat across from them in my recliner. Nobody spoke for a moment. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Dad, we need to talk about the boat. Figured you might. $96,000, Dad. He said it like I'd spent it on something shameful. She's a beautiful boat, Michael. That's not the point. He glanced at Renee. She picked it up from there, the way she always does. Dad, we're worried about you. You're 71. You should be thinking about protecting what you have, not throwing it around like this. Throwing it around. I let that phrase sit for a second. Like what, exactly, Renee? She gestured, a little helpless, like you've got money to burn. I saved for that boat for 8 years. That's not throwing. Dad, it's $96,000. I'm aware of the number. I wrote the check myself. Michael jumped back in. Dad, you're living beyond your means. You know that, right? Somebody needs to say it. There it was. Living beyond your means. I let it breathe in the room a second. Rosalie appeared in the doorway. Can I get anybody some iced tea? Mom, we're talking, Michael said, barely glancing her way. I gave her a small nod. It's fine, Ro. Let them talk. Michael turned back to me. Dad, you need to be saving that money. For later. For he hesitated for when you need it. For what? Exactly, son. Finish the thought. For us, Dad. For the family. What if something happens and you need that money and it's gone? For us. There it is. That's what this actually is. You're going to leave us with nothing, Renee said. Quiet. But she said it out loud, into the room, where it couldn't be unsaid. I looked at her for a long moment. Is that what you think this is? She didn't back down from it. I'm just being honest, Dad. I nodded slowly, looked at the carpet, looked back up at both of them. Your mother's right that I've worked hard my whole life, and you're right that I should be careful. I hear you both. Michael blinked. He'd braced for a fight and got an agreement instead. Okay, good. So you'll look into returning. I didn't say that, Michael. Dad, I said I hear you. I'll cut back. I stood up, which was my way of ending it. They stayed another hour, ate the leftover pot roast, told stories, laughed about nothing in particular, and drove home feeling like responsible, caring children who'd done something good for their old man. Rosalie watched their taillights disappear down Larkspur Court. I'm fine, Ro, I told her before she could ask. She studied my face the way she's studied it for 43 years. She knows the difference between me being fine and me being finished with something. She didn't say another word, just went quiet and started clearing the glasses. That night, after she'd gone up to bed, I went down to the basement, into the little room off the laundry area that used to be my workshop and was now mostly a desk, a filing cabinet, and a space heater. The kids used to call it Dad's office, back when they were small enough to think a card table with a phone line on it was serious business. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started pulling up statements. 37 recurring monthly payments, some large, some almost nothing, all flowing quietly out of my account to the same two people who had just sat in my living room and told me I was living beyond my means. I started with the smallest one, and then I just kept going. Stay with me on this one. Because what happened over the next 7 weeks, I promise you, neither one of my children saw coming. It was the last week of July when the first domino fell. I didn't send a text, didn't leave a note, didn't make an announcement of any kind. I just sat in my chair every evening with my coffee and watched the calendar turn a page at a time. Rosalie knew something was coming. She'd seen my face the night Michael and Renee left. She'd heard me come up from the basement past midnight more than once that week. But she didn't ask, because Rosalie has always known the difference between a conversation I was ready to have and one I wasn't. I wasn't ready, so she waited, and I watched. It started with Renee's car. She drives a leased Jeep Grand Cherokee, and the payment, $612 a month, had been coming out of my account on autopay since the day she signed the lease 2 years ago. Her name was on the paperwork. My account number was on the payment, was on it. I was out back trimming the hedges on a Tuesday morning when my phone rang. Renee. I let it go twice before I picked up. Dad. Her voice had that tight, controlled sound people get when they're working hard not to sound panicked. Did something happen with your bank? Morning to you too, sweetheart. Dad, my Jeep payment bounced. I got an alert from the finance company. Is there a mix-up with your account? I took my time answering. Hmm. Hmm? Dad? What does that mean? I've got a late fee showing already. Might want to look into that. Look into Dad, you pay that. You've paid that since I signed the lease. I know I have. So what happened? I'm cutting back, Renee. I kept my voice level, easy, the same temperature the whole way through. You told me to. Remember? A long silence stretched out on the line, the kind with a lot of thinking happening inside it. Dad, the car payment, though. Have a good Tuesday, sweetheart. I hung up, picked my clippers back up, and went back to the hedge. The sparrows in the yard didn't care one way or the other. Michael took a little longer to notice, because his situation was more spread out. A chunk of his law school loan I'd been quietly supplementing every month, his gym membership, the streaming bundle on the family plan, and the cell phone line that had been under my account since he was 17. Over the course of 10 days, each one of those went dark, one at a time, like lights going out down a hallway. He called Rosalie first, not me. I heard her end of it from the kitchen. Mom, my phone's been throttled all week, and Netflix logged me out, and now the gym sent some notice about a declined payment. Mom, what's going on with Dad? Rosalie looked over at me across the room. Her face did about 3 things at once: worry for her son, understanding of exactly what I'd done, and a careful neutrality she was trying to hold together in front of both of us. Honey, let me talk to your father. Give me a day. She hung up. We looked at each other across the kitchen. Frank. The gym. The phone. He said I was living beyond my means. He's 31, Frank. He didn't mean. He meant something. Ro. She pressed her lips together, crossed her arms, uncrossed them. She wanted to be angry at me, and she couldn't quite get all the way there, and that fight was written across her whole face. His phone doesn't work right, Frank. He needs it for his job. Then he can call the carrier and set up his own line. He's 31 years old, Frank. I know exactly how old he is, Ro. How much does a phone plan run these days? $60, $70? He can't manage $70 a month? She went quiet at that. I went back to my chair. By the second week of August, both their family accounts I'd been quietly propping up had gone still. I didn't cancel Michael's loan supplement all at once. I let it lapse the way it was scheduled to lapse, just years ahead of when I would have otherwise kept renewing it. Renee's Jeep insurance, which had been bundled onto my policy since she got the car, dropped off at the next renewal. No warning from me, no explanation, just gone. Michael called 4 times in one day. First call, confused. Second, frustrated. Third, loud enough that I could hear Rosalie wince from across the room. I picked up the 4th one. Dad, what is going on? My loan servicer says my payment's short by $400 and it's already past due. You'll want to look at your own budget for that, then. My own dad. You've been covering part of that since I graduated. 4 years. I know I have. I'm cutting back. You told me to. I told you to cut back on the boat, Dad. Not on I didn't mean. You said 37 payments, Michael. I let that land in the silence a moment. You counted them. You came into my house and told me I had too much money going out the door. So I did something about it. Dead air on the line. That was different, Dad. Those were your personal choices. A lot of that was ours. Silence. There it is. He's starting to see it. How many did you cancel? His voice had changed. The anger had drained out of it, and something more careful, more frightened, had moved in behind it. You have a good evening, son. Rosalie broke on a Friday night in the 3rd week of August. I say broke, she doesn't slam doors, never has in 43 years. She came into the den quiet, sat across from me, folded her hands in her lap, and looked at me with the eyes that have read me since we were 28 years old. Frank, please. Ro. Michael's loan people sent a second notice. If it's not caught up in 2 weeks, it goes to collections. She paused. And Renee. Renee called me crying this afternoon. She can't cover the Jeep insurance and her mortgage both. Not on what she makes at the clinic. You know that. I do know that. Then that's the actual problem, Rosalie. Not the boat. That she can't cover her own bills on her own income. That's the problem sitting underneath all of this. Rosalie looked down at her hands. They're not children anymore, Frank. I know exactly what they are. They're adults who walked into my house and told me I was spending too much money on myself. I kept my voice level the whole time. Ro, you know they didn't mean it exactly like. Then what did they mean? She didn't have an answer for that. I leaned forward. What exactly did they mean, Rosalie? Help me understand it, because I've turned it over every night for 6 weeks and I keep landing in the same place. They used the word ours. Michael said I'd leave them with nothing. Renee said I was spending money that should have gone to the family. At 71 years old, after 38 years on ladders and in crawl spaces and up before dawn 6 days a week, after everything sitting in those accounts, they looked me in the eye and made me feel small for buying myself a boat. Rosalie's eyes went wet. She didn't let it spill over. I know, she said softly. I know they were wrong to say it. Then let me finish what I've started. She looked up at me. Trust me, I said. She held my gaze a long moment. Then she nodded, just barely, once, stood up, and went back to the kitchen. That was the last time she asked me to stop. Now, here's where the whole thing turns a corner. My brother-in-law, Dale, Rosalie's sister's husband, runs into Michael at a hardware store out on Route 31 in early September. They get to talking, the way men do when they're standing in the paint aisle with nowhere to be. Dale, God love him, has never in his life been able to keep something to himself. He mentions that Rosalie had called her sister crying the week before, saying something about Frank, talking to a lawyer, something about setting up a trust, locking things down. That's all it took. By Sunday morning, both my kids knew. The calls started at 7:50 a.m. I know the exact time because I was already up, already on the back deck, already halfway through my second cup of coffee. My phone lit up twice in a row. Michael. Dad. Call me back. It's important. Renee. Dad. I heard something, and I really need to talk to you. By 9 that morning, Michael had called 3 times. By 10, Renee was on the phone with her mother instead of me. By noon, the boat wasn't the topic anymore. The visits started that same week. Suddenly, Michael had time for Sunday dinner again. Suddenly, Renee was stopping by on a Wednesday just to see how her mother and I were doing. They brought things. Michael brought a 6-pack of the IPA I like from the brewery in town. Renee showed up with a pie from the bakery on Main Street that I believe I've mentioned exactly once in my entire life, which told me Rosalie had been talking again. I accepted every bit of it graciously, said thank you, sat with them, let them talk. I didn't bring up the trust, didn't bring up the spreadsheet I'd been building since July, didn't bring up the word ours. I just let them visit, let them be warm and attentive and remarkably curious all of a sudden about how their old man was holding up. And I watched. It's funny how the idea of an inheritance can improve a person's whole calendar. If you've stuck with me this far, drop a line in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from tonight, and go ahead and hit that like button while you're at it. Rosalie poured lemonade and moved quiet between the kitchen and the living room and didn't say much. But once when Michael was talking and not looking her way, she caught my eye from across the room and she almost smiled. They thought the canceled payments were the punishment. They thought the whisper about a trust was the scare. They had no idea I hadn't even gotten to the part where I sat them down properly. That part was still coming, and I'd been building toward it, in one way or another, for longer than either one of them realized. Some men get even by raising their voice. I got even by getting organized. It was the 3rd Sunday in September. I picked the day on purpose. Sunday, nobody's got a meeting to duck behind, nobody's got an excuse to cut it short, and promise to circle back later in the week. Sunday, you sit down, you stay, you deal with what's on the table. I called them both Saturday night. Come for dinner tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Don't be late. Michael asked, everything okay, Dad? Everything's fine. 2 o'clock. Renee asked, should I bring anything? Just yourselves. I hung up and went down to the basement office, opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, the one with the lock, and pulled out a folder I'd been building since the first week of July. Sat there a long while just looking at it before I closed it and went to bed. Slept better than I had in months. They arrived together the next afternoon, Michael's truck pulling in right behind Renee's Jeep at 1:56. I watched from the front window as they sat in their vehicles a minute before getting out, rehearsing something between them, aligning a story. I opened the door before either one knocked. Come on in. Rosalie had made her baked ziti. The one with the ricotta layered thick and the top brown just right. The dish both kids used to fight over the last bites of when they were small. The house smelled like every good Sunday we'd ever had in it. We ate first. I made sure of that. Renee tried twice during the meal to steer things toward the trust. I redirected both times, asked Michael how the firm was treating him, asked Renee how the new position at the clinic was going, told Rosalie the ziti was the best she'd made yet. Let them eat. Let them settle in. Let them believe, for another half hour, that maybe this really was just dinner. When the plates were cleared, I stood. Let's go sit in the front room. Rosalie took her chair by the bay window. Michael and Renee sat on the couch, same as they had in July. Same room, an entirely different weight in the air. I went down and came back up with the folder, sat across from them, set it on the coffee table, didn't open it yet. I want to talk about what the two of you said to me back in July. Michael shifted in his seat. Dad, about that. The boat, all of it, we didn't really think it through. I know you didn't. I said it calm. That's actually on me, some of it. I never sat you down and showed you the real picture. I let you assume things instead of just telling you plainly. I'm fixing that today. I opened the folder. This is a full accounting. 37 line items going back a little over 20 years. I turned it and slid it across the table. First page. They leaned in together. Michael picked it up. I watched his eyes track down the page, watched them slow, watched the color start to drain out of his face. First column's the item. Second is the monthly amount. Third is how many months it ran. Fourth, I tapped the table. Once is the total. Renee was reading over his shoulder now, one hand coming up slowly to cover her mouth. I didn't say a word. I let the numbers do it for me. Numbers don't get defensive. Numbers don't have an agenda. They just sit there and tell you the truth whether you want to hear it or not. Michael turned the page, then another. Car insurance, cell phone lines, gym memberships, streaming accounts, a chunk of law school debt, a security deposit, a down payment assist, medical copays, a transmission repair, moving costs, 90 some other small things that had flowed out of my account into their lives, so quietly they never had to think twice about any of it, because it was simply always there. He got to the last page. The total line. He stared at it a long moment. Dad. His voice came out thin, stripped down to nothing. This says $1.4 million. I said it the way you'd read off tomorrow's weather. Over about 22 years, give or take. The room went quiet. Not an awkward quiet, not an angry one, a reckoning kind of quiet. Renee's eyes were wet, but she hadn't started crying yet. She was right at the edge of it, that fragile place where one wrong breath tips everything over. Michael set the pages down slow, like they'd turned delicate in his hands. I never knew, he said quietly. I know you didn't. That's the whole point. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You came into my house in July and told me I was living beyond my means. Told me I needed to cut back. Told me I was going to leave you with nothing. I paused. I want to ask you something, and I need you to actually sit with it before you answer. Another pause. Which part of $1.4 million was living beyond somebody's means? Neither of them answered. Good. There isn't one. I bought one boat. One in 71 years. $96,000. And you two sat in this room and made me feel like I'd done something shameful. I shook my head slow. I sat right there in July, and I smiled, and I agreed with you both. Then I went down to that basement that night, and I thought about every single line on that sheet, and I thought if 96,000 for their father is living too large, let's find out what they think about $1.4 million spent on themselves. Michael opened his mouth. I'm not finished. He closed it again. I'm not doing this to punish either one of you. I'm not going to hold it over your heads. I'm doing this because I love you both, and somewhere along the way I did you a disservice by making everything too easy to understand what things actually cost. I sat back. So here's what happens from here. I reached into the folder and pulled out a second document. Cleaner, shorter. My attorney drew this up about a month ago. I've restructured everything into a trust. The money's still there for the two of you. But it's protected now. It doesn't just land in your laps the day I'm gone. Michael, The trustee doesn't release anything to you until you've held one job, steady, for 2 full years, no gaps. Renee, you carry your own mortgage and your own bills, independently, for 18 straight months, no help from this house, before a dollar of this touches your hands. Renee looked up sharp. Dad, I can't. On what I make at the clinic, I barely. I know. That's not me being cold to you. That's me telling you something's wrong with a situation where you can't, and the fix was never supposed to be my checking account. I held her eyes. You are 33 years old, and you are smart and capable, and you never got the chance to find that out because I made it too easy for you not to. That stops today. Not because I'm angry at you, because I love you. Her chin started to tremble. The tears came slow, one at a time. Michael was staring at the trust document, jaw working. And the payments? He finally asked. All 37? Already stopped. Have been for weeks. Permanently? Every one of them. Dad, my loan payment is my responsibility now. It has been for 2 months. You figured that part out already, didn't you? He held my eyes, then looked away first. Yeah, he said. Quiet. I did. So you already know you're able to carry it. The room sat in silence again. Rosalie hadn't said a word this whole time. She was in her chair by the window, hands folded in her lap, her lemonade going warm on the side table, present the whole way through, steady, the way she's always been in this house. I looked at Michael, then at Renee. I'm not your enemy. I'm your father, and I'm going to be your father for whatever years I've got left, and I intend to spend a good number of those years out on that boat, and I'm not going to apologize to another living soul about it. I let that sit, but I'm done being the bank. That part of things is closed. Renee wiped her face with the back of her hand, took a breath. Dad, I'm sorry. I really am. But she gestured at the trust papers. This can't actually be permanent, right? This is you making a point. We get it. We hear you. I looked at her steady. It's permanent, Renee. The temperature in the room shifted. Permanent, Michael repeated, like the word had landed on him from somewhere far off. He picked the document back up, read it again, set it down harder than before. You're telling me you canceled everything. All of it. And now there's a trust with conditions attached, and that's just how it is from here forward. That's correct. Because you told me, to my face, in this room, that I was spending money that belonged to you. Michael stood up. Not slow, not calm the way a person stands when something's moving inside them their body can't hold anymore. That's not what we said, Dad. Mom, Michael started. No, Mom. He pointed at the papers on the table. I have to hold a job for 2 years, like I'm on probation. I've had a job, Dad. I've had the same job for 6 years. What is this supposed to prove? It means you carry it on your own. No safety net under you. Without, he laughed, but there wasn't a shred of humor in it, the kind of laugh people use when they're too angry to find the actual words. So you go to a lawyer, behind our backs, restructure everything, cancel 37 payments, and then you sit us down at Sunday dinner and hand us a contract like we're new hires. Michael, lower your voice in my house. I'm not going to lower it. He pressed both hands to the top of his head. Do you have any idea what the last 2 months have been like? My loan going to collections, Dad. Calls from a servicer. I had to borrow $400 from a guy at work because I didn't understand what was happening to money I'd counted on for years. Money that was never actually yours to count on. Dead silence. Flat, cold, silence. Then Renee stood too. And that's when I saw it, really saw it. The softness had gone out of her face completely. The tears had stopped. What was left underneath was something a lot harder. You know what, Dad? Fine. She grabbed her purse off the arm of the couch. You want to play it like this? Like we're strangers you don't owe a thing to? Fine. But don't sit there acting like you're doing us some kind of favor. You didn't do any of this to teach us a lesson. You did it because we hurt your feelings over a boat. Renee. Rosalie was on her feet now. A $96,000 boat, Dad. We were worried about you. You were worried about your inheritance. She flinched, hard, because it landed, because some part of her knew it was true and couldn't argue her way around it, and that made her angrier than anything I could have said. We're leaving. She looked at her brother. Michael, let's go. Michael stood there a second longer, still looking at me. Something moving behind his eyes. I couldn't quite read anger, sure, but something younger underneath it too. Something that didn't actually want to walk out that door. But Renee was already moving toward it, and Michael has followed his sister out of rooms his whole life. He picked his keys up off the side table, didn't look at his mother, didn't look at the folder, looked at me once more. Hope the boat was worth it, Dad. He walked out. The door didn't slam. Somehow that was worse than if it had. A slam is a feeling. A door pulled shut quiet like that is a decision. I sat there and listened to the Jeep and the truck both back out of the driveway. Listened to the street go still again. Then I heard Rosalie, still standing in the middle of the room, hands at her sides, shoulders up near her ears, crying not loud, not dramatic, just steady, the way a person cries when they've been holding it in far too long, and the whole thing finally lets go. Frank, my baby's just walked out that door. I got up, crossed the room, put both arms around her. She cried into my shoulder, her hands gripping the back of my shirt like she needed something solid to hold on to. "They'll be all right," I said quiet into her hair. "They'll be all right, Ro. You don't know that." "I do." I held her tighter. She pulled back a little and looked up at me, eyes red, her face the same one I've loved for 43 years. Every line of it, every worry, etched into it plain as day. "What if they don't come back, Frank?" "They'll come back. Frank." She caught herself and let out a small, broken laugh through the tears. I held her face in both hands and looked her straight on. "Everything's going to be all right. I promise you that. Maybe not today. Maybe not for a good while yet. But all right, eventually." I wiped her cheek with my thumb. "Trust me the way you've trusted me your whole life." She searched my face, looking for the man she's known since we were kids ourselves, the steady one, the one who's never once made her a promise in 43 years he didn't keep. She found him. She nodded. I walked her into the kitchen, sat her down, poured her a glass of water, sat across from her in a house that still smelled like ziti and a pie nobody had touched all evening. I built every bit of comfort those two kids ever had. Every safety net, every soft landing, all of it, quiet, without ever once asking for a thank you. 38 years of giving everything I had to everybody else. One boat, for myself, in all that time. And they called it living too large. Let them work it out. They'd land on their feet eventually, one way or another. But that part, for the first time and longer than I could remember, wasn't mine to carry anymore. If this one meant something to you, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell me down in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I'll see you on the next one.